What's up, guys? Welcome back to the other guys on the Badlands Podcast Network. I'm Jake Chatsky, joined as always by Paul Kilgallen. We got another draft for you guys. It seemed like everyone had a lot of fun with the offensive build your own Jets offense with $15 draft that we did last week. So we're running it back with defense as promised. Paul, how you doing? How you feeling going into this week?
I'm doing good. I'm a little more confident this time around. I'm a little more prepared. I think I went into last week's thinking like not that it was like a throwaway pod, but that it wasn't current. So like I don't need to prep as much because I just know Jets history, right? And as many times as I've seen these little like $15 drafts before, it's usually like fast food or like something like pick five that gotta pick five that you gotta have for the rest of your life or something. And so I just hadn't really thought through strategy when doing that in a draft snake style. And so I walked into it a little cold last week and I got mollywopped by you. So I'm a little bit more ready this week. I feel good that I get a chance at redemption. So
Yeah, I'm excited to get into it. It was nice getting universal praise in the Badlands group chat, but hopefully you're back for revenge. And this week with defense, we had to do it a little differently than we did last week because, and we'll get into this when we discuss the grid, but there are just way more better defensive players than there were offensive players. And kind of the way defenses work, these guys were, sort of paired together in a sense a lot of the time. So a lot of these categories are going to be multiple players. You've got a D line combo, a linebacker duo, a cornerback duo, a safety duo, and then your defensive coordinator, which I'm going to get to this once you read the names. But Paul, you built this graphic. The graphic was my brainchild, but you did like the actual rankings and the tier system. So why don't you run through it so that you can take credit for the seating this week because people were having problems with my Don Maynard seating last week. So if people
yeah,
want to complain on the internet, they can go directly to you this time.
I was going to say, I like how you're throwing me out. You're taking no responsibility for the graphic this week. So when
Listen,
people inevitably say who's left out, um,
no.
they,
There is one part of the graphic that is 100% my responsibility and not Paul's at all. And when we get there, I'm sure he will point it out.
Absolutely. So I think the cool thing that I found about doing this, like first of all, I kind of just like Jake and I were texting back and forth, and he was like, do you want to help out with the names a little bit? And I legit just like sat down and just started drilling names in. So a lot of this is kind of just off the top of my head. Like on a second look, like I might have moved some guys around in terms of value, but I think the cool thing that I found while doing this one is that on the offensive side, we had to put in a lot of like end of career 1 year mercenaries because there's just like so little offensive talent historically for the Jets that like a lot of those guys on that list you don't really remember as Jets. And we didn't have to do that here. If anything, it was hard to kind of narrow down and we had to leave some people out who are pretty good Jets because there's so much good historical defensive talent to take from. Everybody on here, all these duos played together with the exception of one, and that's going to be James Hasty and Johnny Sample. It's just two really good cornerbacks that didn't necessarily have a great running mate at any point in their career that I feel like needed to be on here. And so everybody else did play together at the same time, which is pretty cool. And we thought this was an interesting way to do it as combos instead of picking, edge, cornerback, linebacker, and DT or something like that, where we had to kind of like, there's going to be people left out, right? So this gave us the ability to basically have, what is it? 5 times 4, 40 players instead of 20 players, which is nice. And then the head coaches. So yeah, the one that I'm actually kind of salty that you took Ray Mickens out. So I just want to give everybody a little bit of background on this. In the bottom cornerback slot, I was toying with like that year that they traded for Donnie Abraham and Aaron Beasley to like revamp the corner backfield in the same year. Or I think one of them might have been a free agent signing. I forget exactly how they both got here, but they were both established corners who came in from the outside. And I originally had them, and then I like swapped in David Barrett. And then I was like, you know what? Ray Mickens should be in there. Let me put Slim Pickens Mickens in the mix here. And Jake texted me back and just said, I have a hard time with the old guys. And like Ray Mickens, I feel like I was in college when Ray Mickens was playing. So that was a personal attack on me. I didn't feel good about it. And Jake, why don't you tell everybody who you put in instead? This is a punishment. I wouldn't spend negative money. If I was getting credit for taking these two guys, I wouldn't take them. So why don't you tell us who you put in?
Listen, here's the thing. In my opinion, the name of the game should be like, how do you allocate your resources? And there should be some obstacles in the way of doing that. I think the way you
Totally.
had set it up, there were very few obstacles. Uh, I also know that the Jets have some of the best corners in NFL history. So the $1 slot was really a free space for me to fuck with people who are only going to see the graphic and not listen to this part of the podcast. So if you're making it here, you're in on the joke. You got Tremaine Johnson and Mo Claiborne bringing up the $1 spot for the cornerback duo. So that was my contribution. But Paul, let's really quickly run through just the list in order so we can, set it up for the audio listeners who don't have the graphic right in front of them. Joe's going to post it with the podcast on Patreon. It'll be tossed into the Discord. So make sure you're going to there for if you need to look at it. And we'll also post it on Twitter again as well. But Paul, why don't you run through the names and the seedings before we get into it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to start off with D-line combo. In some cases, this is going to be two edges. In some, it's going to be D-tackle and an edge. In some, it's a nose tackle and an edge, nose tackle, whatever. Like, it's just two defensive linemen who play together at the same time. In the $5 slot, we have, obviously, Klecko and Gastineau. The only challenge of this part was, do we leave out Marty Lyons, Rashawn Salam, right? At $4 slot, we have John Abraham, Sean Ellis. $3 slot, Quinnen Williams, Bryce Huff. $2 slot, Dwayne Snacks Harrison and Calvin Pace. And in the $1 slot, Marvin Washington and Hugh Douglas. Next, we have linebacker duo. Again, any combination of linebackers. $5 slot, legendary Mo Lewis, Marvin Jones. $4 slot is CJ Mosley and Quincy Williams. $3 slot is David Harris, the Hitman, and Bart Scott. $2 slot, Jonathan Vilma and Victor Hobson. $1 slot, James Farrier and Brian Cox. Cornerback duo. I mean, this was the hardest one to narrow down. Gets a little thin at the bottom, obviously, but in the $5 slot, we have Revis and Cromartie. $4 Sauce Reed. $3 Aaron Glenn, Marcus Coleman. You could have put Otis Smith in there too, but I went with Marcus Coleman. $2 slot, James Hasty, Johnny Sample. These are the guys that didn't play together. $1 slot, Tremaine Johnson and Mo Claiborne. Safety duo, Victor Green and Jerome Henderson in the $5 slot. $4 slot is Jim Leonard and Kerry Rhodes. $3 slot is Jamal Adams, Marcus May. $2 slot is Brian Washington and Ronnie Lott. $1 slot is Jordan Whitehead and Tony Adams. And then for defensive coordinator, we got a murderer's row here. Really no bad options on this one. Bill Belichick at 5, Rex Ryan at 4, Bob Saleh at 3, Todd Bowles at 2, and Eric Mangini at 1.
So immediately, I think you did a great job with this list. It's a tough. First off, what do you think about doing it in terms of making the seating? It's harder than it looks, huh?
It is harder than it looks. And like, again, on the second pass here, like I was like, man, I put Victor Green at the top, huh? Like I love Victor Green, but that was probably emotional for me to put him at the top. That's a childhood memory thing. Some of the other ones I would definitely slide around on a second look too.
Don't give them away.
Yeah, it is what it is.
That's part of the draft strategy. Yeah. But yeah, I think, a couple things immediately stand out to me. One, and again, I don't want to expose my draft strategy too much here, but compared to the offensive draft, there's a lot more columns that I feel way more comfortable with the depth, which gives you a lot of options. Like the offensive draft, I felt like I had to come in with a clear-cut plan. Here, it's kind of, we're going to be bouncing off each other because there's a lot of different ways where I could build this team and be comfortable. The other thing that stuck out to me was obviously you got Belichick up there, who was a true DC besides, a 48-hour, 24-hour period with the Jets. But the rest of the time, it's basically all head coaches because we've been through this run of just defensive head coaches who have a defensive coordinator, but, really it's their defense, with all credit to Ulbrich,
You know what I was thinking about when I was when I was making that column, I was like, if we had done offensive coordinators last week, who would you even put on it?
Right.
Is there anybody? Like, I'm not sure there is. I mean, Charlie
Jeremy
Weiss,
Bates,
and then that's it.
Jeremy Bates, Chan Gailey. Yeah, no. You had to go head coaches, and I like, obviously having Belichick up there, I think makes sense, but the rest of the time, just having these head coaches under like a defensive coordinator label. Pick your dream New York Jets head coach, and then this guy gets to be their DC. I feel like most Jets fans would sign up for that anyway.
100%.
So, one last piece of business before we get into it. We did this last week, but I'm gonna tee it up to you again. Uh, as these drafts were my idea, would you like to go first and have the first pick, or would you like to go second and have the back end of the snake? So you would have 2, 3, and then the person who picks first would have 4, 5, etc., etc.
I'm going to defer my choice.
You're deferring to the second half. Okay, I'll go second. I'll put you on the clock, which is what you did to me last week, and it didn't necessarily work out. But I feel more comfortable going second in this draft than the last one because of the many paths I feel like I just said.
Well, you did go second last week, didn't you?
No, I went first and I took Parcells, and it completely put you on tilt.
Yeah, you're right.
But so I'll go second this week, and I'll make you lead this one off.
All right.
Start us off with the defensive draft.
I'm going Rex Ryan first. $4, Rex Ryan. I mean, obviously, like some of the most fun teams we've ever had. Talking shit, hitting people hard. Hard Knocks happened at that time, and it was also a fun defense to watch. As good as Bob Saleh's defense is currently, and it's awesome. Sometimes it's not as exciting to watch as Rex's defense was, because Rex's defense was coming at you from several different places all the time. It was chaos. It was, as much as Bob Saleh preaches violence, like Rex's defense was violent. You'd be, all of a sudden there'd be 7 guys coming at you from one side. You never knew where the pressure was coming from, and it was all dictated on exotic pressures plus lockdown coverage in the back. So, I mean, that kind of tells you where I'm going next here, but there's 2 good options at that spot, and I'm comfortable with either one. So I wanted to get Rex locked in first because that's the defense I'm going to run. And again, it was just so much fun watching those defenses. And it, much like Salah's defense kind of allows you to not have top skill players at certain positions, Rex's was the same, right? You needed the corners. You absolutely had to have the corners, and you had to have some competent safeties who could call plays, but you didn't necessarily need the level 1 and level 2 to be as high of a skill level as those guys in the back. So it gives a little bit of flexibility. Plus, it's fun. It's a little bit emotional, and it gets me to where I wanted to be last week when I wanted to take Parcells first. So I'm reliving that. Rex.
It's a great pick. Obviously, right in our wheelhouse in terms of like, core memories as a Jets fan. Those defenses were like the defining Jets defenses of my childhood for the most part. And obviously, Rex as a defensive coordinator has won a Super Bowl. There's 3 guys on this list that have won Super Bowls as defensive coordinators, and you nabbed one of them without spending all of your budget. So I can't knock the pick. I am extremely torn here. I'm torn between a heart pick and a head pick. Okay. I think I gotta go. I'm gonna go with the sack exchange for $5. I'm gonna take Klecko and Gastineau. And part of the reason is, like you said, depth at the corner position. The other reason is, Joe Klecko is an absolute beast. He is a 2-time first-team All-Pro. He's not in the Hall of Fame, but he's the only man in NFL history to make the Pro Bowl at 3 different positions, which is insane. And obviously, Gastineau, one of the best pass rushers in Jets history. They're a lethal combo. And also, I'm doing this kind of for the graphic. Look at that hair. Like, that is just a beautiful mane. Those are the two guys, I want anchoring my defensive line. So I'm going to go with the New York Sack Exchange with my first pick overall before I take my second one. Paul, thoughts on the first pick?
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, the edge group here is really top heavy. As good as Hugh Douglas and Marvin Washington, all the guys at the bottom were, I mean, it doesn't really get much better than Klecko and Gastineau, especially the positional flexibility that Klecko had to be able to move and play all over the line and make Pro Bowls and actually be good on all those positions on the line. Gastineau, I, kind of still consider to hold the single season sack record because Brett Favre let Michael Strahan have one for free at the end of the year there. I don't think that record's been. Oh no, did Bosa break it? Bosa broke it. All right, whatever. So throw all that out.
Or
But
Watt, right? TJ Watt got close, right?
was
I don't
it?
think
Yeah, one of them.
he tied Strahan, right?
Okay.
Whatever. Fuck it.
So either way, Gastineau is, my president, right? Like I'm rolling with Gastineau. He was mean. He was a psychopath. Like he's kind of everything you want in an edge guy. Klecko's recently inducted into the Hall of Fame, like all that good stuff. So they've gotten a lot of good burn lately. It's a great pick. I love it. I mean, if you can pressure the quarterback, that's really all it's about, right? How many Super Bowls have we seen where the better team lost because the defensive line was in the quarterback's mouth all day, right? And so you can't go wrong with those two guys.
No, you can't. And I'm not going to tip picks, and I'm not going to do it right away because you've obviously already taken a head coach. But there's a possibility that defensive line is going to be very, very key to my system. But with my next pick, I'm trying to figure out if I can do. I think I can make this math.
I'm going to put a draft clock on you, Jake.
All right, I know. I'm trying to figure out if I can make this math work. Fuck it. I'm going to do what you did last week, and we'll see if it bites me in the ass. But I'm going to take Revis and Cromartie. I'm going to spend $10 right away. Take Revis and Cromartie. I know I'm shopping in the budget bin for the rest of the round, but Darrelle Revis is my favorite Jet of all time. DeBrickashaw Ferguson, heart pick, but Darrelle Revis is the best Jets player I've watched play the game in my lifetime. We're shutting down one side of the field and sending the best pass rushing duo in Jets history at you. I don't care who the fuck I got coaching this defense. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's. I think Will was talking about it on his podcast with JJ over the weekend. Like the season that Revis had, it'll never be done again. It's not quite Cal Ripken playing, 3,500 straight games or whatever he did, but it's in terms of the way the game has changed, it's impossible to do what he did, right? Like it's never going to happen again. You can't get away with some of the stuff that he was doing, and just the sheer dominance of it all. And then you add on top of that Antonio Cromartie on the other side, who was already a good corner before he came here with the Chargers. And he had return ability. He was super long. He was a ball hawk. He always seemed to be in the right place at the right time. And he could get up there and high point the ball with the best receivers in the NFL. Like the duo is insane, dude. Like and now you look at your defense and like, you're super solid. Yeah, exactly. You're super solid on the line and you're super solid at corner. Like you can pressure and you can cover. Like what else is there? Are you going to be vulnerable to the run? Maybe, but like what else is there? You have the horses now.
Yeah, and that Revis graphic is just one of the all-time great sports graphics for Jets fans in history, where it's just all the receivers held under 100 yards. It's a part of my team now, and I'm happy to have it. So I kick it back over to you. You got 2 picks now. Who are you going with?
All right, so I am going to go. The beauty of this here is that I can leave corner for last now. I can kind of go and shop in other areas that I want to shop in.